Every day, millions of Americans rely on public transportation to get to work, to school, and to essential services. But for too many, access to reliable and affordable public transportation is a luxury, not a necessity.
It's pretty.
These are the voices of communities across America, united by a common goal: transit equity. We envision a nation where everyone, regardless of their income, race, or disability, has access to safe, reliable, and affordable public transportation. Together, we can build a national network that connects our communities, strengthens our economy, and creates a more just and equitable future for all. We are the Transit Equity Network. Hello, hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Hello, hello, hello. There's my mic. There's my mic. Hello, hello. Comment in the chat if you can hear me. So I'm just not talking to myself. Let me get this. Make sure we're going on before I move on. Hello. Let's turn this up. Could be louder, but we can hear you. Okay. Let's see if I can turn this up a little bit more. Hello, hello. How about now? Okay, I can hear me now. Okay, wonderful. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me this evening for the Transit Equity Network presents the Atlanta to Savannah Passenger Rail Walkthrough Survey. My name is Bacardi Height, also known as Bacardi Obama, and we thank you for joining us today. So this will be another walkthrough. I know we've done this probably twice already, but this is third time's the charm, and this is also just a little history and info if you don't know why we're doing this and why we're doing this so much. Just to kind of clue you in on to the importance of this, and especially at this time right now. So I'll give you a little history lesson, then we'll go and dive deep into the survey. And I'll also provide the survey link, which I will do right now. So if once we do the survey, you can do it right along with me. So I will provide that in the chat now. So everyone should have the survey if you're on YouTube. I don't know if you have it if you're on Facebook, but if you're watching me on Facebook, let me know. And if not, I can put the chat in there. But if you're on YouTube, you should definitely have the link with you. But if not to waste time, we'll go ahead and get started. So just an agenda today. We're doing the welcome now. So and I'll go into just kind of housekeeping. We'll go into just a brief how did we get here? What did passenger rail look like in the past? What does it look like now? And where do we want to get to in the future? We'll do a walkthrough of the survey. So if you haven't done the survey yet, you'll be able to do it with me alongside me so you can see what the questions look like, what they'll ask you. And just we can go ahead and you can ask me questions about the survey and what different things mean. So we'll go through that. I'll do any Q&A and then we'll close out. As far as housekeeping, be sure to follow us on all things social media with the Transit Equity Network. Shout out to everyone who's watching me on Facebook. Transit Equity Network. We have a great group. It's probably our most populated group. We're also on Twitter and Blue Sky at Transit Equity In. Shout out to everyone watching us on YouTube at Transit Equity. We're also on Instagram. So if you have an Instagram, definitely follow us on Transit Equity. That's one of our fastest growing platforms. And I'm going to be trying to do a lot of visual content, especially with my travels. My travel schedule is literally piling up as of today. I've got some trips lined up literally next week, as well as with next month. So shout out to New York. I will be in at New York Climate Week, and shout out to Chicago. I will be there as well. So, and the website is coming soon. I'm still putting the finishing touches on the website, so you will be able to acquire the services for the Transit Equity Network. And if you'd like to donate to us, we're definitely a growing group. If you have any transportation services, as far as consulting, as far as planning that you would like, definitely hit us up in the email that we're going to provide. Or if you'd like to donate to us, the cash tag is below at Cash App, $Transit Equity. We really thank you for your support. And we really want to grow this movement that we have, and especially in places like Georgia and other places where we can really lend a hand. Like I said before, my name is Bakari Height. I'm the executive director of the Transit Equity Network, also the co-founder of MARTA Army. I have years of advocacy experience from down here in Georgia to Texas to Pennsylvania to Maryland. I've seen a lot, so I'm definitely I would say qualified to talk about a lot of this. But if you have anything that you'd like us to look into, definitely email us at transitequitynetwork@gmail.com. Our vision is we envision a world where public transportation is equitable, affordable, reliable, and safe for all. We really want to stress that, and especially with projects like this, we want to make sure that it's not just a project to throw money at, but it's a project that really thinks about the people that are going to benefit from it, as well as, and for surely enough, the people that are going to ride it. And that's just mainly because it's one of the leading points of reducing carbon emissions. You can move more people on public transportation on a lower emissions than you can with anything else. So we really want to stress this, and especially with this project. Now, I want to present a question. Have you ever traveled between Atlanta and Savannah that was not within a private vehicle? And I'll let you ponder on that while we go through these slides. Currently, right now, you can get there in between the two within a couple of ways. Of course, the main consensus is you could drive there. You could drive the 4 hours between there. It's a really boring drive, but it's a drive nonetheless. Now you can walk, be a long walk, so many days on the road. Same with biking. Yeah, I know a lot of cyclists do bike the East Coast Greenway, and that there is a plan to put a trail that comes from Athens that would connect into the trails in Atlanta and eventually go to Savannah. So I know that's one thing to work on. You could do what I did the other day, which is take the bus. Greyhound runs service between Atlanta and Savannah, with sometimes a stop being in Macon. So it'll almost mirror the rail line that we're talking about today. And you could essentially ride hail using Uber and Lyft. That'd be expensive though. So we're really talking about equitable ways to get by. But that is still an option. Now we're thinking about these different options just because gas prices are not necessarily what they were in a couple of months ago when we were looking at $4, probably even $5 in some places, but they're still expensive, and people are still feeling the pain at the pump, and that's probably not going to go away for a while. So much to where people create creative ways like this, to where they trick out a Barbie car to cut down on how much money they spend on gas. But we're kind of looking at these two places. There's still a lot that a lot of people don't know. When you're looking at Atlanta, you're looking at the capital of Georgia, also the cultural, economic, political, educational, and in some ways, the technological center of not even just Georgia, but the South. We're hold the world's busiest airport as far as passenger. Um, we have a lot of headquarters that are still being locating themselves here, but a lot of the storied ones are Delta, Coca-Cola, Chick-fil-A, Home Depot, Genuine Parts, and even more that we'd be here all day is as far as listing. And we're probably the third or fourth largest city with the most concentrated headquarters in America. So we're really looking at a huge economic center that we're connecting, as well as the other end that we're also connecting, which is Savannah, which, if you haven't been, is also a capital in its own right. It was the first capital of the state of Georgia with um, the Georgia colony. So it's a lot of history goes into Savannah, and it's definitely shaped the city, with also being a huge manufacturing hub, with JCB's headquarters there, as well as with the Port of Savannah, which is a huge contributor to the state's gross domestic product, um, as well as Hunter Army Airfield with the military presence that's there. But it also is a huge tourist hub in its own right, with its historic district being world renowned, as well as St. Patrick's Day, which rivals that of Chicago and Boston. And then, of course, its proximity to Tybee Island, with one of the many public beaches of the state of Georgia. So we're connecting two really huge, important places within the state of Georgia. But if you see on this map, you see the distance between the two cities, 248 miles roughly, um, via I-75 and I-16. But it comes with a lot of drawbacks. You have definite construction, especially if you're going through Macon. That 75-16 interchange is still not there. I have zero clue how many years have they worked on that and what they've had to sacrifice to do so, but it probably looks the worst now that it has ever been in the whole history of that intersection, in my mind. There are many speed traps along it. I witnessed so many speed traps going that way this past Monday. Car wrecks, of course, and especially with all the truck traffic that comes between there. You also have a lot of traffic congestion, especially in places like Henry County, south of Atlanta, car breakdowns, as well as with a lot of the gas stations, which with like we mentioned before, like the gas prices being so high. And then, of course, there's just the toil of being on such a boring stretch for 4 hours. So those are some of the drawbacks of being there. Now, so why are we talking about this now? That's because we had a really huge history of having rail in the past. Um, and one of the main train lines that went between um, Atlanta and Savannah was the Nancy Hanks train, which was a service of the Central of Georgia Railway, that provided service back in the 1800s. But this train specifically ran in the 1900s, more specifically between 1947 and 1971. And this was a really great way to get between the two cities. Now, the trip took 6 hours. So, um, not necessarily as long as what we've hoped for this new train line to be, but it got you there. But at a cost of $9.45 round trip. So you talk about a real bargain to get between two of the most important cities in Georgia. I think this is a really great case for why this train line really was successful. Well, during that time, and then of course, everyone knows about the time during the 50s when the automobile became a really major part of the fabric of American life, which led to the eventual decline. And that also was a double whammy with the breakup of a lot of the railroads within America. So it's not even just within Georgia, but a lot of railroads either were consolidated into local metro area commuter rail lines, or they just went away completely. One of them also includes the Floridian, which used to run through Atlanta. But a lot of this really came down with Amtrak taking over passenger rail services federally across the country in 1971. But the Nancy Hanks train was not one of the ones that was retained. So both Atlanta and Savannah lost that service, and both of their terminus stations were destroyed. Savannah was actually destroyed to make way for Interstate 16, which a lot of people don't know. So it's a real shame, and especially because both stations were really hubs for a lot of the rail service in both Atlanta and Savannah, respectively. Now, here's currently what we have. We have four inner city train services: the Crescent, the Palmetto, the Silver Media, and the Floridian. Now, all run daily train services with one train going north and then one train going south. The Crescent serves Atlanta, Toccoa, and Gainesville, with providing daily train service between New York and New Orleans. The Silver Media runs between New York and Miami, providing service to Savannah and Jessup. The Floridian provides daily train service between Chicago and Miami via Savannah. And the Palmetto is a daily train that provides daily train service between New York City, and it actually terminates in Savannah. So Savannah is actually an endpoint for that train service. And Savannah also has the most inner city train service out of any city in Georgia. So it's really special in showing that Savannah is definitely a hub for train service. Now, I also want you to pay attention to this map because this map shows a lot of the congressional districts in the state of Georgia. So that's really important to know where your congressional district is in relation to where these trains are, because these are going to be the people that you're going to want to call on, and especially to really figure out as far as the federal funding aspect of it. Because this is a part of the 750-mile rule for Amtrak, because it's under that, the state of Georgia will have to provide funding for this because it's less than 750 miles. Any of these routes that would be proposed for the Atlanta to Savannah passenger rail will have to have state of Georgia funding because it's under that threshold. Now, that may change with the Surface Transportation Bill being due in September. So we're still waiting to hear back from that, but I definitely implore you to call on your representatives to really express that you do want this train to happen. Now, why is this important? We've given a lot of reasons already, but I'll give you some more reasons. So this program came out because of what's called a corridor ID project. And essentially, those are projects that are federally selected based on their importance and from what the state has helped prepare. And it was one of those that was selected throughout the South. Now, three of these that went out through the South have something to do with Atlanta. Atlanta's either an endpoint for it or it's a through point. The other two projects, other than the Atlanta to Savannah train line, which was a project submitted by GDOT, is the Atlanta to Charlotte route, which is more for high-speed rail because Charlotte is at the end of the Southeast Corridor project between Charlotte and DC, where they're going to be working on increasing the speeds and the tracks for that to set it up for high-speed rail. So the next phase of that would be sending it down to Atlanta. As well as a line that's owned by the city of Chattanooga, that was submitted by the city of Chattanooga to run service between Atlanta and Memphis via Nashville. Now that would be significant. That would be significant because Nashville is another city in America that has absolutely zero inner city passenger rail. It's actually one of the largest cities in the country to not have passenger rail. The largest to date may be Columbus, Ohio. And I know our good folks in Ohio are working on restoring passenger rail service up there. So it really puts Atlanta in a huge focal point for being a big crossroads in the South as far as a transit hub. And it was once worked before, and I know they can really work on it being in, getting back to that point. As well as with future connections to Florida, not necessarily related to the projects that we're talking about now, but given that there's already rail that goes between Savannah and Jessup to the next stop of Jacksonville, I'm sure that there's definitely going to be some talks about connecting more service, and especially as we're talking throughout the region. Also for many other reasons, and I'll go through some of these. Definitely reducing traffic congestion between I-75 and I-16, and I'm sure a lot of the truckers will definitely appreciate that. Reducing carbon emissions that we talked about earlier on in the presentation. Increasing mobility options. Like I mentioned, if you do not have a car, this would definitely open up more options on how to get around. And especially like if you like say if you're getting from Jessup to Atlanta, this would definitely help with having an option like that. Increasing productivity at the Port of Savannah. Um, GDOT has spent so much money with making sure the trucks get to I-95 and I-16, and I think just taking a lot of this traffic off the road would definitely help increase productivity, as well as with economic development through the state. With all the towns that may be in the line of for the passenger rail line, like Macon. Macon has a huge station already that is the hub for their local bus system. So that would be a huge advantage for them for opening up more people to come visit Macon and a lot of their attractions, as well as with other places through Middle Georgia that can spur economic development with that. As well as with expanding attractiveness for employers and businesses. Um, Now with these trains, you can now live in certain cities and not be tied to living outside of Atlanta or living outside of Savannah. You can live in Dublin and commute to Savannah because now there's an option. Um, or if this line went to Athens, this is now a possibility for one to live in Athens and commute to Atlanta. So this is many possibilities that can expand through this. So I'll stop there and see if anyone has any questions before we get into the survey. And if not, we will go ahead and we will open the survey. So hopefully you're able to see this. Yes. I've got to put this up on my screen so I can figure, because I'm working off one screen. I usually work off of two monitors, but I'm working off of one today, so bear with me. But if you're looking at this now, you see the main page for the GDOT Atlanta Savannah Intercity Passenger Rail Project. So this is the front page. Now here you can click this button and you can follow and receive project updates. You'll most likely have to sign up through your email address. And then I'll just read it as we go along. And it says, are you driving between Atlanta and Savannah? Take our survey. GDOT is studying the potential for passenger rail service between Atlanta and Savannah, Georgia, and we want your feedback. Share your share your travel preferences for the Atlanta to Savannah passenger rail project. The public comment period runs from July 6th until August 6th, 2026. So if you're watching this today on August 6th, today is the last and final day to submit comments for this. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And we're going to click on this later, but we'll go ahead and scroll down. And it says overview. The Atlanta Savannah Intercity Passenger Rail Project will evaluate the benefits and costs of a passenger rail between Atlanta and Savannah, identify and narrow the range of service alternatives across the study area, focus on financially feasible, practical solutions to implement a passenger rail service. And if you scroll down, they show a project study area, and it says this study area includes the cities of Athens, Atlanta, Statesboro, Milledgeville, Macon, Augusta, Savannah, and more. So if you look at this map, and I'll zoom out a little bit so you can see it more, you see pretty much most of northern Georgia and eastern Georgia are selected, and there's even portions of southern South Carolina that are also included in here. And that's just mostly because of the regions of influence. So if you see the parts of it right outside of Augusta and right outside of Savannah, that's just because most of the region spills over into South Carolina as well. So if you watch channels from Savannah, you'll notice that it also includes some news stories from Jasper and Beaufort County, South Carolina, as well as with Augusta, with Aiken County, South Carolina, that kind of go within commuting patterns. You'll have people from South Carolina commuting to Augusta as well as Savannah as well. So that's why that's added. But if you look at this map, you can see Athens in the middle of here. You can see Madison is in here. Macon, you can see Dublin is in here. Um, Even down going along the 341 corridor to McRae, Hazelhurst, Baxley, Jessup, Hinesville's in here, Statesboro's in here, Waynesboro. It's a lot of cities in here. So, and even the cities that are included within the existing crescent, like Gainesville, Toccoa, Elberton's in here. So there's a lot of cities within this corridor, as well as the 75 corridor, as well as with Houston County, south of Macon. So it's a pretty big study area. So if you're in any one of these cities or counties that I just mentioned, I would definitely look at this map. And what we want to do with the Transit Equity Network is we want to do a tour of a lot of these cities and just do open houses so that you can sound off on what you would like to see with this passenger rail, or why you think that your town or your county would be great for a station. So definitely keep in mind of this map moving forward with the study. Now it goes down to describe the different types of passenger rail service. So the first one says rail transit, and it says all day frequent service, serves the densest urban area, service based on headways, which headways means time between repeated trains. Most stations are closest together, and this is regulated by the Federal Transit Administration. Now, this ought to say rapid rail transit. And those are systems like you see in the picture of MARTA, or if you've been to Washington, D.C., and you've been on Metro Rail, or the CTA system in Chicago, or BART in the Bay Area in California. These are more of your rapid rail services, where it's more focused on the metro area of a city. The one below it is commuter rail. This also serves a metro region, provides daily access for workers between suburbs and the city center during peak commute hours. Many stations close together, and it's also regulated by the Federal Transit Administration. So, an example of systems like this are the MBTA lines in the greater Boston region, Metra, which is the commuter rail lines in Chicago. The SEPTA regional rail lines is also another example of this. The more geared towards commuters, like it says, some of them do run on peak hours, but now a lot of these systems are starting to run towards all day service. That's something that the Commonwealth of Virginia is trying to work on, is take it from peak service going into DC to all day service, because there's so much activity going on in the suburbs of Virginia outside of DC. And then below is intercity passenger rail, which is exactly what the Atlanta to Savannah project will be. These are serving longer distance trips connecting multiple major cities. Stations are spaced further apart to preserve higher speeds and faster travel times. And this is regulated by the Federal Railroad Administration. So this is an example of what the Atlanta to Savannah project is, and currently what we have now in the state of Georgia, with the aforementioned cities I mentioned. So this is essentially what you want, and especially if we're trying to focus on higher speed rail, you don't want to have too many stations bunched together, because then you won't be able to achieve the highest speeds. And the highest speeds that we're seeing right now in America are around 110 miles per hour on the Northeast Corridor on the Acela line. Sometimes Brightline in Florida will also reach speeds of 100 plus on certain parts of it. But that's essentially what you want with intercity passenger rail. You want to be able to get through quickly because you don't have as many cities to stop into. You also see a timeline. I won't read too much into this, but if you want to know how the spending went for this, the federal contribution was 80% at $8 million, and GDOT matched it for $2 million for the state's rail budget, for a total of $10 million. Now we're going to need more than that, and especially more as far as operating the system. So we're definitely looking at um, expanding that out. Um, the grant was awarded in 2023. There was coordination work um, and a purpose and need development developed in 2024. Market analysis, service corridor, route type identifications in 2025. And that's when some of the surveys started. And then now they're continuing work, including a technical analysis and coordinating with partners, as well as with doing another survey. So, but you can continue to read on that. And this is just kind of like what they're looking at. And then there's also some more about the Corridor ID project and some of the surveys. Now, I'll look at we'll read some of the survey results. So if you did take the survey back in the spring of last year, um, they got over 5,000 responses, which I don't think is enough. I think that we can really do more than that. 53% of the respondents travel between Atlanta and Savannah at least a few times per year by car. Very few fly, even though there are 6 round trip flights between Atlanta and Savannah. 79% of respondents have traveled by intercity rail. 28% have used Amtrak in Georgia. So there's a lot of the people that have taken it that most likely have taken the survey because they want to see it here and they want to see more of it. Now, the responses were split between faster, more direct service and balanced with more stop opportunities. So you can definitely see that there's a huge wish of their town being included in. So there's kind of a mix of a trade-off there. And most respondents prefer a balance between implementing service sooner and achieving a high quality service. So it's also really important to know. And here's some other studies like the studies that were included in here. And here's some frequently asked questions if you'd like to point this out. So we'll go to the survey itself and we can do the talk along. So we're going to go back up to where it says, are you driving between Atlanta and Savannah? And we're going to hit the submit feedback button. And it should be loading up now. All right. It says, thank you for taking the time to complete this survey today. GDOT is studying the potential for passenger rail service between Atlanta and Savannah, Georgia, and we want your feedback. For more background information, please visit the project website. The estimated completion time is 10 minutes. So we'll go ahead and click next. It says, please enter your email address. So I will go ahead and enter mine here. Let's see. And it also asks you to enter your home zip code. So I will enter that. And it asks, what county do you live in? And it gives a drop down of all the counties in the state of Georgia. So I will select my county. And then the fourth question is, when you travel between Atlanta and Savannah, how do you usually get there? And there's some options that say drive alone, drive with others, fly, take a bus, take a group shuttle. So you'll just select which one that you take. Hold on one second. All right, so I have to think about this one because let's see, I've taken the bus a lot between both. And I drive between them every now and then. So for this one, I'll take the bus. And it says, how often do you typically travel to this destination? At least once per week, at least once per month, multiple times per year, once per year, less than once per year, this is the first time I've made this trip and I plan to do it again in the future, or this is the first and only time I've made this trip. I don't plan to make it again. So me personally, I make I'm starting to make this trip more often than not. So I'll definitely put at least once per month. And the next question says, what keeps bringing you back to this destination? And the options are business, education, leisure, and other. So I definitely do it for business and I also do it for leisure. So I'll select both of those and I will go down. The next question is, if you could travel between Atlanta and Savannah in 4.5 to 5 hours one way and did not have to drive yourself, meaning you could use the time to relax or be productive, what is the maximum you'd be willing to pay for this service? And it says, please select the choice on the slider between $100 and $200. Prices are one way. Cost and travel times are theoretical and do not reflect real word conditions. I think that's supposed to say world. Now, I got a question on Facebook about this last week. Um, Basically saying, is it really going to be $100 round one way? To that, I answered, it would basically be based on how much GDOT will contribute um, to the services. Um, a lot of states, like I mentioned, the 750-mile rule. If you're below that, you have to contribute state funding to these trains. So you have a lot of places that contribute to this because they had that, like the Mardi Gras service that was just put online between uh, New Orleans and Mobile, Alabama. That's less than 750 miles. So those states, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama, all contribute to that rail line being up. And I don't necessarily think that there's any one-way train ticket that's $100, and especially from one end to the other. So I wouldn't focus too much on this question. Um, Now, if you do want to slide and say to this one below and say I would not pay one over $100 for this service, you can absolutely do so. Now I will say for the bus ride between Atlanta to Savannah, I paid less than $100. So am I really willing to? And I've taken Amtrak between like Maryland and Georgia, and some days I paid a little bit more than $100. So I'm one of the people who would literally select this of saying I would not pay $100 plus for this service. And that's just being honest. And just kind of with experiencing other rail systems around the country, I just wouldn't pay that much for this service. Um, Moving on. Um, I think the next question is pretty much the same, but it's the only difference is they're asking you in 3.5 to 4 hours. So I guess this one is under the assumption that the rail will be faster. Um, so this one I have to kind of put my hat on between my experience with riding Acela between DC and Boston and all the cities of saying, is me getting to my destination faster with just only going to the downtowns of certain places worth paying more? Um, I would definitely just call your your expertise and just your thought of would you pay that much money for this service. So if you feel like it would be worth the extra money, I would put the mark. I would drag the marker over. Sorry, I didn't explain that before, but you would basically just click anywhere on here and drag the marker to where you would think. And if you don't mean to do it, you can just hit the button reset, and then it would go away. Um, I wouldn't pay more than $100 for the service either. So we'll go down. Um, And the next question is the same one, but just like with the last time of 2.5 to 3 hours. Um, I would say the same thing. But now it's asking about between $200 and $400. And same for me. I wouldn't pay more than $200 for this service. And that's just because historically, like with them paying round trip for $9.45, like it you got to think that that was before a lot of this inflation, and that was also just a different time period when it took 6 hours. So I'm kind of using that and also using my experience of riding rail in other places. So once you select that, you can just hit next. And then it asks some demographic questions. It says all the questions on this page are optional. Please make sure to hit the submit button at the bottom of this page for all of your answers to be recorded. So it asks, what is your age? Under 18, 18 to 24, 25 to 34, 35 to 44, 45 to 54, 55 to 64, 65. So I will put there because I'm 35. How many vehicles does your household have? None. One, two, three, four more. I'll put none. What is your total annual household income? Remember, this is optional, so you don't have to put this. What is your race? So I will put black. What is your employment status? I'll put employed full time. What industry do you work in? And then it gives. So these are just general demographic questions. So they want to just basically see who's working what, um, as just kind of a way to guess how. I guess that will also come into play as far as how much they'll charge for the service. If they get a lot of blue collar workers, I don't think it's going to be that expensive versus if they get a lot of white collar folks. So I'll put transportation. And question 15 is important. Do any of the following disability types apply to you? And it has hearing difficulty, vision difficulty, cognitive difficulty, ambulatory or physical difficulty, self care, independent living difficulty, none of the above. Now, this is important, and especially if you live with a disability, because we really want the service to be ADA accessible, as well as making sure that they're accommodating for any disability as possible. So, this is really important to answer this. None of this applied to me. And when you're done with all of this, you hit submit. And it says, thank you, your response was submitted successfully. And that's all that is to it. So I will stop sharing this. And we will go back to this. But yeah, that's essentially it. So if you were able to do so, that's as simple as the survey is. I don't think it was as long as last time, and there were definitely some different questions. The willingness to pay was definitely a different question that was added onto here. So I think that's really trying to gauge um, how much people are willing to pay in relation to how much they're going to charge for it. So I think that was a really key curveball being thrown, and especially with just kind of also looking at what they're going to be investing in. The timestamps also come into play of what cities will get skipped, what technology they're going to use, as far as if it's going to be electrified. If so, that will definitely speed it up as much, as well as with what route. Because if you've ever looked at a railroad map of Georgia, you can see that a lot of those routes really do have a lot of curves, and that you're also going up in elevation differences because you're going from the coastal plain down in Georgia to the Piedmont region in Atlanta. So you're definitely going through a lot of hills. So that's definitely something to note with those speeds. But yes, that's essentially it. Um, I'll take this time to answer any questions or comments that you may have. So if you have any questions, definitely drop them in the chat, and I will answer them aloud. Um, Remember, this is the last day to do the survey, so definitely do that before midnight tonight if you're watching this. But if you're watching this, if you're watching the replay the next day, you can definitely still go to the website if you have any questions about the study. And like I said, the Transit Equity Network will definitely be looking at doing some programming to engage the public within the next few weeks. But any questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll definitely go ahead and close this out. Thank you all so much for joining. Definitely email us at transitequitynetwork@gmail.com if you have any questions. Once again, these are our social media networks. Definitely follow us on our Facebook group at Transit Equity Network, Twitter and Blue Sky at Transit Equity In. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Transit Equity. Subscribe to our Instagram page at Transit Equity, and we will be working on posting our website soon, so you can definitely subscribe to our services then, as well as with all of the other content that we're definitely planning to post. Other than that, I thank you all so much for joining me tonight. We'll be signing off here, and we thank you so much for joining us. We all hope you have a wonderful evening, and we'll catch you back here soon.